doing?
So now it's announcements time.
Okay. You want to put up the slide deck for me, Linda, and I can just walk through the slides?
Yeah. Do you have the link, or do you want me to go to?
Oh, do you mind just putting it up and walking through it as I go through my items and then Danny does?
Yeah. But can you see it, or do I have to share it?
We don't see your screen yet, Linda. We don't see it yet.
Give me 1 second. I got it. 1 second. I have resume, stop sharing, start sharing. Sometimes doesn't work. So let's see. Now, can you see it?
Oh, yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. All right, great. So, hi, everybody. My name is Jason Rotella. I'm the founding organizer for GDG Capital Region. Chad and myself and Linda and two other gentlemen that aren't here tonight, couldn't be here, are the organizers for our group. So we're really happy to have you here. Our organization and our GDG chapter is out of upstate New York. We're just a little bit south, or a little bit north, I should say, of Albany, New York, which you probably know is like the capital of New York State. So, you know, in this time of you know, the pandemic kind of spreading across the world, we're really well aware of its presence being just north of New York City by about a few hours. So, you know, we thank you for coming together as a worldwide community, it looks like, for this multi-GDG event. We're really excited about bringing you this this great content from Ben regarding, you know, doing an AMP study jam. So we're really excited about that. And don't feel free to you know, reach out to us after the event too if you're interested in you know, finding out more about our group, or if you'd like to stay in contact with some of the other meetup organizers that are on here as well. So let's just go to the next slide, Linda.
Yeah, give me just 1 second. Sorry.
Yeah, so essentially you just saw in the previous slide the meetup agenda. So it'll be you know, going through some items, housekeeping items and administrative items for the meetup. And then, you know, Danny will actually make an announcement regarding how we're doing a prize drawing and so forth. So let's dwell on this slide for a little bit because it's super important. Chad went through some of these items, so you might want to just read through this. Basically, some of the key things here are to, you know, turn off your camera if you don't want to be recorded. You know, I think Chad mentioned keep your microphone muted. We'll actually we would like to follow the code of conduct for the GDG. So to, I mean, in a phrase, I should say, it's to be excellent to each other. So, you know, essentially, hopefully we can all work together and be cooperative. Seems like there's a very good vibe going so far. So I don't see a problem there. And, you know, like Chad mentioned, ask questions or leave your comments in the chat, and he'll bring them to the speaker's attention throughout the event. I think we can move on from here. Those are the high points. So here's what you, for the, maybe the previous slide, was that him? You might have flown through that. Okay. So here's a list of required items if you want to participate in the virtual meetup. So just kind of look through this list, make sure you're all set up. Okay, we go to the next slide, I think. I'm sure everybody's probably set for this. All right. So we would like to, you know, leverage social media as much as we can with this. And, you know, we ask that if you can kind of post online on Twitter or any other social networks, LinkedIn, whatever it may be, with the hashtag shown here, it'll allow us to go through and kind of capture the feedback from the group and the excitement that you're feeling as you're going through this, and make it more public for the community. So, you know, if you want to take a little side time and do some tweeting or some posting on LinkedIn, we'd certainly appreciate that. Yeah, next slide, please. So here's kind of the agenda. We're going through the opening remarks and announcements now. We'll have Ben sort of presenting on the actual study jam workshop, and we'll have a dedicated period of time for Q&A, and then we'll have a prize drawing. And pretty shortly here, we'll be hearing about just exactly what the details are regarding getting into the prize drawing, and then and so forth. And then we'll wrap up, you know, with the last 10 minutes and make some closing comments and wish you all well. Send you on your way. Hopefully we'll have enjoyed the event that we're hosting here for you. Next slide, please. So we just wanted to kind of quickly go through the each of the GDGs that are collaborating with GDG Capital Region around this event. So we'll quickly put the slides up and kind of show you the chapter names and their organizers here. Give them credit for their very hard work and their collaboration. All right. Very good. As you can see, we have a ton of participation from lots of different chapters in this virtual meetup. So it's very exciting to see the diversity of people and the geographic diversity and so forth. We're really excited about that. Please, GDG leads, give yourself a round of applause, and everybody else do the same, because you do a great job for your communities, and we're really happy to have you there. So
You're all on mute, but I'm sure it's a roar. I'm sure it's just
Absolutely.
deafening, the sound of your applause right now.
Back patting. That's right. So okay, and so with that, I think we'll just kind of we'll go through the next. Where's the next slide, Linda, that we have?
It's now it's the
Oh yes, great.
raffle time.
Yeah, so let's have the prize raffle announcement, please.
Hey everybody, my name is Danny Thompson with GDG Memphis. I'm so ecstatic to be a part of this. I know some of you are looking at your screen right now and you're saying, oh my God, he's so pretty. How is it possible? I know. But with that being said, I'm very ecstatic to team up with all these groups to provide what I always say, positive impact. I'm a big believer in positive impact creates more positive impact. And if tonight's not a showing of it, I don't know what is. I wouldn't be anywhere else besides here right now. So with that, we were able to leverage our communities to offer several resources. One is everyone that stays until the very end of this meeting, we will be giving a resource to everyone that attends. I'm not going to say what it is yet, but you'll find out at the end. Highly recommend it. I would never, go easy on a resource. If you know me, I don't go easy on anything. I don't go easy on my dinner plate. I don't go easy on resources. All right. So we're going to make sure everyone gets something valuable, but we're also going to do a raffle for, I believe it's about 15 people to make sure they get an additional resources on top of that. Highly recommend it. I genuinely hope you guys enjoy this and stay till the end. With that being said, we'll leave it on to the next person. Linda, you're muted. Or whoever's speaking next.
I forgot I muted myself. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
We can, Linda. I see the announcement screen still.
Okay. So now we have, I have only a small presentation about our speaker, Ben Morss. I hope so I pronounced correctly his name. He's a developer advocate at Google for 6 years now and musician. Maybe he can tell us more about his passion about music. And he's advocating for years to make the web faster and better for developers and users alike. He was in different teams at Google, but now 2 years, almost 3 years now, he is in the AMP developer advocate team. So I will give the presentation to Ben. Are you ready, Ben?
I think I'm ready. I think I fixed my problem here. It wasn't the mic cable. It was the A to D converter that was crapping out and making horrible sound effects. I unplugged that and plugged that back in, and now it's happy.
Okay.
The more stuff you get, the more it tends to fail.
So feel free to take the mic and tell us all the story. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks for all of that. This is really exciting. I'm amazed at the crowd that's here from all over the country and all over the world, all over many countries. Thanks a lot to Linda and everyone else for getting this crowd together and all these GDGs organized. It helps me a lot to do this with all these people helping out and doing all this work. And it won't take quite as long as on the schedule there, I don't think. I think probably will take about an hour and a half for the workshop, maybe a little less than that. At the end, there's a raffle and there's prizes. So that's all very exciting. Let's see here. There we are. Okay, I'm going to present this because I wasn't presenting before. So here we go. Any minute now. All right, to the instructor, who is me. Oh, that's me. Okay. So hi, this is me. My name is Ben. As Linda was saying, I work at Google. I'm a developer advocate at Google. My job is to help the web be faster and easier to use for developers and also users alike. And did used to do music for quite a while. Actually, I quit programming and did just music for quite a while. I came back to programming later on and found myself getting a job at Google. So go figure. You may see also a keyboard in the background and things like that. As time permits, I do still do music here and there. I'm very glad you all have joined today because we travel around and meet people often. Actually, this was the week of I/O. We're going to be in California here. I had a talk on AMP script and JavaScript and workers, and I/O has been canceled. We also do an event called the AMP Roadshow where we go around the world to various places and talk about AMP and how it can help people use the web more easily. And we're going to go to Pakistan in March and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka afterwards. And that was all canceled. So I'm really glad to get to meet you all through this virtual method over here. It's actually pretty efficient. There's no travel, there's no expense, there's no hotel rooms or staying on your friend's couch. You can just get online and do it. I hope you're all staying safe where you are in various locations. I live in New Jersey, right near New York. Our state is the second highest rate of infections in the country because we're very close to New York. It's getting better over here though. Things are improving and I'm fortunate to live somewhere where we are safe. Hope you're all in the same boat of safety. So what this course here is, this workshop is actually, putting it differently, this workshop is a condensation of the first of 3 courses we made for AMP and put out last year and announced at AmpConf. This is just a workshop version. So I want to talk a lot less and get you all making things sooner. I'm going to compress greatly the usual intro I do to what AMP actually is and get us all making things. Of course, using it is a way to know how it actually is, whether you like it or not. And you may have questions that arise as you actually are trying to make your first ever AMP site, which you'll be doing in the next few minutes. So before that, briefly, let's say what AMP actually is. So what is this AMP thing? It was designed to solve a problem you're already familiar with. If you watch videos that people make from Google or other companies or really pay attention to these things at all, one problem the web has is it tends to be too slow. I mean, if you're on a really nice 4G connection and on a nice modern phone, a nice modern device, it's not really a problem in most cases on most sites. But for some sites, we're getting someone who's not muted here. Hold on a second. I'm going to mute you. Thank you. You muted yourself. Thanks. In many cases, though, people are on 3G connections or on even in many cases 2G connections around the world. Many phones process JavaScript slowly because they have lower powered CPUs. Many phones just don't have the power to actually show more complicated sites that well. So for many users, the experience is degraded. Actually, I saw a stat recently that 40% of connections in the world were still 2G. So speed still matters. And if you don't make a site that's fast, you risk having this happen to this guy over here. He's here looking at your site on his phone at a cafe. He's taken up smoking and drinking to cope with the stress of his phone site not loading up. So fix your site, make this guy's life longer. Do it for him. So one problem the web has is often sites are slow. And another problem it has is that they often are unresponsive for a little while. This can happen when there's things on the screen that involve some sort of JavaScript handling them, but other JavaScript is running. Maybe you've got a large bundle that has to load up before things appear on the screen. Whatever it is, things can be unresponsive for a long time, or for even a few seconds is a problem. If you see a site loading up, you're clicking on something, trying to scroll, and nothing happens, it's a bad user experience. It makes it frustrating. Also, what can happen is that you're looking at a site there on your device and you're reading some text and suddenly it moves because an ad just loaded in. Ever have this happen to you? The ad just popped in, you're watching a video all of a sudden, despite your willingness not to watch a video, and the text moves somewhere else, maybe even off the screen. Or you're looking at your phone there and reading something and suddenly things move around because an image popped in or a video popped in or something else. This is a bad user experience as well. So you may load up a site, run read something and find that it loads slowly, things don't respond, and even that things bounce around on the screen. If you're following Web Vitals, the latest thing we've announced about performance, these things are all dealt with Web Vitals, the latest metrics we have for performance. So AMP was designed to fix all of these things, make these things better. So what is AMP? First of all, AMP is HTML. So what it does is it adds the tags to HTML that don't currently exist. HTML was developed to display documents on a screen. So you could have things that were marked as paragraphs or as boldface or hyperlinks. It didn't have things like, here's an interactive menu. Here's a carousel of images you can scroll around the screen. Here's an embed from Twitter. All these things didn't exist and still don't exist in HTML. So what AMP does is add web components that make these things possible. So you can use HTML to make an interactive site instead of using as much JavaScript for everything, instead of relying on lots and lots of JavaScript, or third-party JavaScript especially. How does this work? Because AMP has its own JavaScript, which is kept small, which runs these web components in the background and controls the page and makes sure things are smooth and load in nicely. Now, AMP also comes with a set of rules and guidelines. If you follow the rules AMP sets out for good performance, such as, for example, JavaScript uses only certain context, so it can't slow things down. CSS is not above 75K, and it's kept in line to avoid more network requests. If you follow the various rules of AMP, then there are always web spiders out there from Google and other companies looking for valid AMP pages. If your page is valid AMP, then the spider will find this and tell the site to put it in an AMP cache, where it will then be served from the search engine and will load extra quickly. This is a bit abstract. I can explain it by showing you an example. Let's go over here. Oh, we have names.com. Look at that. Let's make this simulate a mobile phone real briefly. And let's go to what else but our friend google.com. Let's look for something like a news story of some sort, something which is not too controversial. I was looking at Houston before. That was pretty good. Election is better. So here's a search for election. You see at the very top over here a thing called top stories. This is called the top stories carousel. And everything in here is actually an AMP article. If I scroll through these things on my simulated phone, you see these little lightning bolts in the corner. That is the AMP decal. So these things here are all valid AMP pages. You look down here further, you'll see more things, even more carousels that are all AMP. And then going down further, we might see even more things. Over here, 538, another AMP marker, all these things, another AMP marker. All these things are AMP pages. So Google knows that these things are going to be fast because AMP pages really can't run their own JavaScript, and they can't load images without your permission. So it knows that these things can be loaded quickly. What it will do in some cases is actually load the content, preload the content in an iframe, so it will appear extra fast. Not always, but sometimes it does this. And in general, this is loaded from Google's servers. So if I click on a little article over here, it loads it very quickly. It loads stably, nothing shifted around. It's supposed to be a better web experience. That's AMP in a nutshell. Another example of this, if I go to Bing, Microsoft also supports AMP. We do the same search here on Bing. Then we're going to see, oh, look at this. They have a little display about elections. That's very nice. We should see over here a Bing AMP carousel. Come on, Bing, don't prove me wrong. Don't make a monkey out of me. Don't embarrass me. And well, it's not working. Let's look at something else, maybe newsworthy. I hate to do this now, but let's look at COVID-19. It's probably in the news. There we are. And there's normally would be an AMP carousel, but I don't see AMP on there now. So sorry, Microsoft. Usually you'd see AMP articles on here. You don't see them now. So, oh well. Anyway, back to our presentation over here. This is what AMP is really in a nutshell. It was developed as a way to make sites load faster on mobile devices from search engines. But because it's useful in general, it's become this thing you can use for any site that isn't too complicated because it's more about HTML, less about your own JavaScript. It tends to be better for simpler and more content-oriented sites, useful for all kinds of things. That was a big mouthful. Any questions in the chat over here? I see 37 comments. Yes, that's what AMP is. It's a web component framework. As Erica is saying, it also can be used for a web stories format, which exists, which is kind of like Snapchat or Facebook's or Instagram stories, but for the web. You can use AMP in emails to make emails actually dynamic and make it in ads to make ads that have less JavaScript, less trackers, and load more quickly. So I'm going to go on over here a little bit, taking a little drink from my random Costco bought bottle of or can of seltzer. There we go. So that's AMP. And I said these things before. It restricts JavaScript. There's a validator. There's caches. By the way, we announced a little while ago AMP plans to also give the privileges that get given to AMP pages in Google search to non-AMP pages as well. to pages that are as fast as AMP pages and have the same kind of stable layout as AMP pages. So they're working on these things now. Look for more news in the near future about giving the same kind of treatment to non-AMP pages, because AMP isn't supposed to be a Google thing, although Google invented AMP. AMP's an open source project. And the idea is not to have Google have this new format for the web, but everyone to make pages that are faster. One way to do it is use AMP. You can also do it by not using AMP. We find also that the performance, however, tends to degrade over time. People tend to make sites faster, they get slower again. It helps you keep your site faster for the long term because it really keeps you from doing things that make things slow, with a couple exceptions. So real quickly here, almost done here with the AMP thing. Sorry it's going so quickly. I want to get into the workshop, but these are some examples of AMP web components that exist. You see a variety of things here you can do: analytics, a carousel for images, looking here at random or bytecode, video player, Reddit, embed, position observer for scroll-based animations and things like that. AMP list for making AJAX calls, XHR calls, a service worker installer for making your PWA. Here's a really simple example of AMP in action. This is an AMP YouTube component. This is looking at a question over there. It's supported by all browsers. Yes, the AMP team makes sure that it's tested on all major browsers that are used. The last 2 versions are supported. For any browsers used, it is more than 1%, but really it's also useful for other browsers as well. So of course, AMP works on Chrome, Firefox, Edge, Safari, Opera, modern browsers. It also works on IE. It's just not guaranteed to work as well on IE because IE is kind of hard to support and its market share is going lower all the time. Anyway, example of AMP in action. Here's AMP YouTube. So this is how you do a YouTube embed. You don't embed YouTube's JavaScript right on your page. Instead, use this tag called AMP YouTube and give it a few attributes. First of all, layout is responsive over here. AMP comes with its own layout system. And you can make things that appear in their current size or that appear responsively. So in this case, if it's responsive, then the YouTube video will shrink as its container shrinks and expand as its container expands. That's all built into AMP. Notice also width and height are specified in there. AMP wants these things to be specified for every component because it wants to declare the size of things in advance. That's how it guarantees a stable layout, by making a space for everything. And then as things load in, they pop into their space and they're not popping all around the screen. And finally, over here, the exciting part, the data video ID. This is in the query string that YouTube uses to show a video. So AMP will grab that video and it will show it on YouTube, and there you are. No JavaScript, just HTML, and that's kind of the AMP way of things. Looking at the chat over here, AMP is a superset of HTML. AMP isn't really a mini website. It's more of a way of making sites that adds things to HTML that weren't there before, using its own JavaScript. It's kind of HTML plus. For a backend developer, that's a whole other question. It's more of a front-end technology, really. It's more of a front-end thing that you can use to make websites. So contrasting to other kinds of things you can do to make websites, if you use a CMS like WordPress or Drupal, it may involve no programming at all. If you're using JavaScript, CSS, and HTML, of course, it's all your programming. You're doing it all yourself from scratch. AMP is somewhere in between. You're still making your own CSS. You're writing some JavaScript, probably a lot of HTML. You're still in control of things, but it's somewhere in between the difficulty of making it all yourself from scratch and the simplicity of a CMS. So for this workshop over here, you should know HTML. CSS is optional for this. JavaScript is also optional for this workshop. So let's get started, shall we? Actually, before we get started, I know that was very fast. I talked a mile a minute. Are there any more questions about what AMP actually is? AMP doesn't overwrite CSS. You give your own CSS to AMP as of any other site, and then you go ahead and make your site. What AMP will do, though, is use its own CSS to make things happen on the screen. For example, for a responsive component, it will use CSS, which it injects automatically to make things shrink and expand properly. So the CSS still belongs to you, but AMP will also add its own things in there to make its layout possible. Its goal is kind of to make things really as easy for you as possible. So instead of doing a lot of coding to make things like, say, images loading lazily, it will do that kind of stuff for you as well. Does AMP hurt the SEO of a site? It kind of tends to help a little bit because SEO also involves making sites faster. So AMP pages tend to be faster than non-AMP pages usually, in which case you'll get better search rankings. There also is a search, is the top stories carousel. If you're making a content page, then that top stories carousel is pretty valuable. Streamlining content to impress, load time for mobile browsers. The AMP cache will also do things to your content to make it faster. It will compress images for you. It will do various things to optimize HTML. So the AMP cache does other stuff, other optimizations to make things fast on the cache itself. And yes, for news publishers, AMP is pretty desirable because it will get you the top stories carousel. So most news publishers in the US use AMP. Other countries, mostly. Some places, not quite as much. Mobile pages, the AMP cache is for mobile pages only, but really all AMP pages tend to be faster because they have less JavaScript and less CSS than other pages. So you can also serve AMP from your own origin as well. In fact, here's an example of that while we're asking these questions. amp.dev is a site we make in our team over here. This is our documentation site. We'll be using this today. amp.dev is made with AMP. So you see over here, if you look at the console, sorry, at the developer tools, we'll see various AMP-like things in there. I'm going to expand this so you can see it a little better. You see HTML AMP, for example, that is a signal to AMP that this is an AMP page. And you'll see in here various things like AMP state, which is a state variable, AMP lightbox component, things like that this page has. Notice also it is fully responsive. There is a iPhone version of the page. And if we just go to responsive here, we can see that as we expand this, there it is, a desktop version of the page. So AMP works on pretty much all devices. Any further questions about all of those things? We have more things over here. AMP state's a great question. It's part of the next course where you learn about how to do your own programming in AMP and set state variables and change things on the screen in response to user action. So we're gonna maybe go over that at the end of the day instead of the start of the day. Email apps, it's not really related to email, but AMP for email is a fascinating topic. Look that up if you're curious about AMP and using it in email. AMP for email lets you use AMP components within emails. So you can do things like submit a form, for example, or get fresh data. And I'm sure somewhere on the site we probably talk about these things, I imagine. Hale?
Will you have the slide deck available after this?
I can share this if you'd like, yeah. Oh, AMP email, look at that. So this is a kind of nice thing. If you use Google Docs or Google Drive, things like that, if you get a message that you've got a comment on your Google Doc or your spreadsheet, those kinds of things, then you might get an email where you can actually respond to the comment right there in line in the email and submit it. It's using AMP form to do that, which is kind of neat. I'm going to keep on going over here. One more question, interesting. AMP is kind of like Bootstrap in some ways. It is a framework you can use to make sites more easily. It's just, it tends to be kind of smaller than Bootstrap, and it also has interactive components. Bootstrap has a menu, for example, but AMP has more things than just menus. It's kind of like Bootstrap plus a lot more. It is a lot more it gives you a lot more tools you can use to build pages that are interactive. Let's find out. Let's try it out. So getting started over here, to do this, we use Glitch. You don't have to actually use Glitch because you can also use your own editor and your own web server. The nice thing with Glitch, though, is you can do this all online. And you also can share your Glitch with the group. As you finish exercises, you can then send me the links, your Glitch links, put those in the chat. I can show those things on the screen. We can show your success, or if you're having trouble, we can help you debug. It's kind of nice for online things like this because we can all interact this way and share our code by just sharing URLs from Glitch. Linda is now putting in there the beginning of this course, which is at glitch.com/~showyouway. Let me, I think I have a slide for that even. There we go, there's a slide for that. So if I go to this link over here, whoops, I didn't do that. I'm gonna type it in here. I should know this by now, glitch.com/~showyouway. This is the beginner's course code. If you get this over here, you can then copy it to your own version. I'll show you what's in this here. There should be a button somewhere saying remix. Over here for me, it's at the bottom. Maybe somewhere else for you because I own this one. It may be at the top possibly. Look for a button saying remix or remix this or something with remix in the word. And that will then copy it to a brand new version. So now mine is called Knowing Strong Goat. Part of the fun of Glitch is the interesting words it chooses for your project name over here. Easy to remember, Knowing Strong Goat. And you'll see these things over here in your repo. I'm going to make this a little smaller. Hopefully you can still see this. There's various things you'd use if you did all the courses together. There's a server for later things involving a server. There's other kinds of node modules and things. A README. All we're going to use in this case is two things. One is in the public directory, this index.html page over here. We'll be modifying this during this course. And also this thing called assets over here. Assets is a set of images in our case. And to use the images we provided here for you, you simply click on them and get this long, painful hex URL you can then use to show things. If I actually copy this here and just put it into a tab, would I see it? Would. Beautiful cheese. That's glitch. So hopefully you are already now taking this thing and remixing it and getting in there. Remix your own, I guess is what the button should say, making your own version of this. So let's get rid of that. Any questions on this so far? Is a cheesy pick? Also, the whole project is very cheesy. This is a whole thing where you are learning, you're making a site devoted to cheese bicycles. Bicycles made entirely from cheese. I take the blame for that one. You cannot rename the files, making it SEO friendly. Maybe you can, actually. I think you probably can't, but this is just for really practice anyway. You can use glitch in production environments, but if it gets too well used, it might have some trouble. I've used it before for production sites, but it's not really made for that. It's more made for kind of trying things out and showing them with your friends. So anyway, you should have this index.html file over here in your own glitch. It should be in the public directory. What else is over here in this slide deck? The glitch editor, we just discussed that already. Images, we already discussed this already. This is optional. The AMP validator. If you want to use this to validate your pages, you can. Again, there's an idea of valid AMP. If you have a site that follows the rules of AMP, you could then get put into AMP caches. It's kind of good to have that, although not necessary. If you go over here, oh, someone's putting it looks like, and now there's some chaos happening over here. Am I still presenting? I see now someone else's picture on my screen here.
Yeah, Ben, can you present again?
I must have lost. Yeah, I lost it. It says I'm actually still here. Okay,
Yep.
Let's do this.
There we go.
Have a free for all.
It's coming back up now.
There we go. And we're back. Okay. So the AMP validator can be useful. If you go and just search for it honestly and just go Chrome AMP validator, you'll find the first result will be this AMP validator over here. If you look for this, you can then install this if you have Chrome, and I already have it installed myself, and it helps you validate AMP pages. You see here at the top of my screen, you'll see, which one is it? There's a little lightning bolt over here in gray. So for an AMP page, that will turn to a color that's green or red. Let me show you an example of that. Here's amp.dev. This page here is valid AMP, and it turned green. So that means my page is valid AMP. If I go to a non-valid AMP page, let's say one of my test pages over here, I think this is going to be invalid. This has one error message over here. If I click on this thing, I can see a drop down showing the error message, although it won't actually be shown on Google Meet. So I won't do that. You can also, instead of using the validator at all, if you want to do it yourself in the console, if you append to your URL hash development equals 1, and then you reload the page, you will see errors here shown in your console. So there's an example there. This is for AMP script, which uses JavaScript in a worker, kind of a cool thing, and I have an error there in my JavaScript, sorry, in my AMP page. That's the validator. Again, it can be useful in this. It's not totally required because our main goal is just to start using AMP and seeing what it's like. So here's our index.html. Hopefully we're all there. And what's next over here? Starting this thing out. Okay, great. You'll notice if you look at your index.html that the HTML tag here has lightning bolt in it. That or the word AMP is a signal to AMP that this is an AMP page. So that's one of the things you have with AMP. More things here you'll have is this over here, this little JavaScript. This is a way of loading up AMP's own JavaScript, async. This is the runtime that you use, that AMP uses to control the page and do other things like display images. Some more common things here you'll find in AMP pages are this meta tag, which is required for AMP. This just stabilizes things for all devices. Also this link over here, This is a little bit of a confusing thing. AMP usually is used in a paired approach where people have a desktop version of the page and a mobile version of the page. The desktop version tends to be non-AMP. Mobile version tends to be AMP. Then to tell search engines this is actually the same page, you have this link that links the pages together. In this case, though, our page is always AMP, so it links to itself. And then this boilerplate over here, which AMP wants you to put in there. And finally, your own CSS happens here in the style AMP custom tag to save a network request. So one request can display your entire page. All your CSS here is inline, which makes it kind of messy, but usually in an AMP project, you'll have a build process that just builds your CSS in some other clever way and then injects it into the page afterwards. And then after all these things here, after all the CSS we give you for free, it actually has a page somewhere at the bottom. Here's the actual body of the page down at the bottom there. That's just
There's a question about Firebase authentication, and would that work with AMP?
Firebase authentication. What do you mean by Firebase authentication in this case?
That's a good question. The comment reads, if you use Firebase authentication, like the one for Google or Twitter, would that validate? And it says, I think not, since it's custom JavaScript. Usually that's it sends it off to Google's authenticator and then sends it back to the page you're authenticating. What do you know about that?
That question probably goes beyond the scope of this course over here. I've never used this before, actually. Even though I've used Firebase before, I've never used the authentication before. But the usual thing with AMP is that you can't actually have your own JavaScript in there without putting it somewhere special. So usually have an AMP component for most things. You can call an API, though. You can make an API call using a thing called AMP lists and get data back. There's various ways to authenticate Firebase. I'm not sure if you can do this or not, honestly. Kind of one thing about AMP is that you can't always use all the things that are out there on the web, which can be a hassle, but most things tend to work. I would guess this might not work if it involved injecting their JavaScript onto the page. AMP also is an open source project, though, so if there are things that aren't supported, you can make a component for those things, and you can add it in there as long as the AMP team and the committees that run AMP think it's a worthwhile component to add. Interesting. Andrew may have a way to do it. AMP access is the standard way to do access of various sorts and have firewalls and authentication. That might be a way to do it. It would require some more work on our part to figure out whether that worked or not. So back over here, let's start making this project now because this is our main purpose. You can have this thing. So thinking about components, you have to imagine that if you want to do things with AMP, you end up using components. That's a wonderful definition there, by the way, in the chat. That's the idea exactly. So images are one of the few components, one of the few HTML tags AMP wants to replace with its own tag. The reason is that images tend to load in ways that JavaScript can't really control, and they tend to pop in and take up space in the screen all of a sudden, and things may move around. And also, you can't lazy load images without JavaScript, although that's actually changing now with the new tags that are possible as part of images. Anyway, AMP image was created to make images kind of smoother. And our first task is to actually replace our image here in this project with an AMP image. I'm just checking here, checking the next slide. We did this before already. We didn't do this part over here. Let's actually do this. Let's go ahead and do this now. So you want to go to your project and find the image over here and replace it with an AMP image. This is not hard to actually do, but let's see how to do it a little more here. Let's go forward a little bit. Actually, I'm going to go back. I'm sorry. Some more examples of components over here. AMP Twitter, for example. This is another AMP component. As with all components, you show the size here, the width and the height. You choose your layout type. You choose the ID of the tweet you want to show. And there's a Twitter embed right there. You have YouTube we discussed before. We did that. Also, certain components are going to require their own JavaScript. So there's a lot of components out there. If the JavaScript was all loaded as part of the AMP runtime, it'd be very, very large. So instead, AMP provides a bunch of small JavaScript files to get loaded up if you use components. And usually you use like 5 or 6 on a page. So that's not very many. Anyway, going on over here, let's do AMP image. As I promised a minute ago, if you have the validator installed, you'll notice a validation error on the site over here. Let's actually show the site. If you go over here to your glitch and go to show, and then you show it in a new window over here, you can see at the top there's a validation error. And I can't show it to you in the extension, but I can open the console here and show it to you with pound development equals 1. Let's do that. And there's an error message here. It says a tag image can only appear as a descendant of tag no script. Did you mean amp image? What they're trying to say there is don't use image, use amp image instead. That's simple enough. The way this works here is, I told you before, it involves lazy loading, gives you dimensions. The way this works is you simply make this into an amp component instead. So the dimensions you want to choose are 640 by 480, and you just have to specify the source, the width, and the height, and you're done. So now you can try this yourself. Try making this amp image instead of this image. If you're confused by this, by the way, during this in general, go to the documentation. So if we go to amp.dev, our site, and look up amp image, I will find documentation and some nice examples. Places the image tag. There it is. You get attributes you have to use over here or can use, like source set, and it talks about what it is, how to make it responsive, or other kinds of things. And there's an example there of an amp image. So now I want you to go and do this to your own glitch. I'll do this while we're doing it also. I'll take this off the screen, and I'm going to make my image into an amp image. If you get this done, feel free to put your glitch link right there in the chat. So let me show this over here instead. So this is the assignment over here. Replace the image with an amp image. Oh, people already are doing this before I am. Faster than me. Let me get mine done. And then I'll show yours. Okay, there's mine. See if this worked or not. Hey, I got it. Okay. And now let's look at Justin over here. There we are. It passes validation. Very good. You can see here your solution. We got more. Amp image, height, width. Notice amp adds all these things over here so it can size and control the content properly. Let's get a few more over here because we have Peaceful Warp Scylla. There we go. Congratulations. Look at one more over here. Some of these words are new to me, like verbena, grass, raspia verbena. Also very nice. If we check your source over here, enlarge that some. There it is, amp image, source, width, height. Very good. So that is a solution. If you haven't gotten it yet, I'll put it on the screen over here in this beautiful slide. Amp image, and then the source is the same as before. Add width, add height, close the amp image, and you're done. Is anybody stuck on this? I see a bunch of successes here. People doing this here and sharing their glitch links. Anybody stuck? I have a question. Can you self-close the tags? You mean amp image and then just close it? I think you actually can't. I think I tried this before. Let me just try it and see if it works for me. I don't know what's going to happen here. I'm going to put it on the screen. Hold on a second. So I self-close my tag over there. And did that work? Well, apparently so. I guess you can. We've all learned some new things over there. So again, simply, if you missed this, you can just copy this here. You're using amp image, and you're closing the amp image, or I guess also self-closing it, and adding width, adding height, and you're all done. I'm going to go on over here because we have more to do. So if you haven't gotten it yet, you keep working on that. In the meantime, notice that we have not made this responsive, though. We didn't add any layout attribute. If we show this on a smaller screen, it goes off the edge of the screen. Possibly a bad user experience. So instead, we're going to make this responsive. This is pretty easy. Go over here and add layout equals responsive, like this. So just add in there layout equals responsive and see if that makes it responsive. I'll do this here too. And see if it does this. Ooh, it's responsive. Okay, it's kind of the wrong dimensions, I think. I think it's squashed. Mine backwards. Yeah. Yeah. I think self-closing it is actually a bad idea. It's possible also to trick AMP and confuse it. It is just JavaScript. It is not all powerful. Oh, much nicer. Look at this. The browser is a fascinating place. Quite complicated. All right. Responsive. Any questions on that? There are various layout types you can use. There's things that are called direct, things that are called fixed, different kinds of things you can use, intrinsic. If you're curious about all these things, you can look up layout over here in the amp.dev and find the various things that will do for you. I think Ashna has shared an image of an actual bike there, it looks like. This is useful over here. This demonstrating amp layouts thing shows you various layout possibilities. So fill means the element takes the space in the container, and as that grows, it will also grow. Fix means it doesn't respond to any changes in container size at all. And responsive is responsive. Good question. When not to use a responsive. Sometimes you don't want things to be responsive. Sometimes you want to control the size yourself. Sometimes you want to say, here's the size, always be this size, never change the size. Actually, I use these things pretty frequently. I use a fixed size pretty frequently. I guess self-closing we discovered is now a bad idea. So going on over here, that was amp image. So we saw these things over here, these examples here. Okay. Now it's embedded video. This is a bit more complicated, but not very much more complicated. We're going to use amp YouTube to embed a video on our site. We use layout to make it come out the way you want it to look. So you can choose your favorite video. This is one that shows Paul Backhouse, who was the first person doing DevRel for AMP. You can choose your favorite ID over here. Hold on one second, I'm looking at my slides. So the goal over here is to embed this video and put it at the bottom of your site. Here's the size of an AMP YouTube video. There is the possible ID, and we're saying make it responsive. This also requires a script tag. So to find the script tag, you should look at the documentation for this. So amp.dev should open somewhere in a tab on your site. Andrew just included the link there, thank you. You should also go over here to amp.dev and just, Paul Backhouse, he's German. He lives down in San Francisco. Amp YouTube, look for that. There it is, and it gives you the script at the very top. The script always follows the same conventional format. It's always async, so it doesn't block rendering. It has the name of the element in there, and the CDN URL is always pretty similar. So now I'll do this to myself. I'll put the assignment back over here. So now you want to embed a video at the bottom of your site. I'm doing it somewhere right above the closing of the main tag works pretty well. And of course, YouTube video IDs are case sensitive because they're all base64 encoded. These things are all significant. Now, is mine working? Mine is not working. I know why. I forgot the script tag. And of course, script tag should go in your head, near your other script tag ideally, Anywhere can be fine. Okay, I've got a video. Actually, I was wrong. The ID is not Paul Backhouse at all. It's something else. All right, looking in the chat. There are some successes over here. Let's look at Janine's over here. Oh, you customized your URL. Virtual GDG ampcitygroup.glitch.me. And there's Dance Gavin Dance. Okay. Very nice. One person seems to have a problem there. Ajay, if I'm pronouncing your number, can you just include the, I guess this might work. If you can include the link to your, oh, I see, okay, this is your source. So your problem is you've closed the tag over here. This greater than shouldn't be here, it should be the end of your AmpQTube tag. See these things here all by themselves outside of your tags. They should be inside the AmpQTube tag over there. Fix that. And if the script is there, it should also be working. Let's see one more over here. All the mods remix. You can express yourselves here through your glitch project. Anybody stuck over here? Yes, as people are saying, put the script in the head. It could work if not in the head, but I wouldn't count on it working. Here's one more. Stealth detailed limit. Oh, there's Paul. You found Paul. If you're stuck, then stick your glitch URL here in the comments and we'll help you out. My computer's gotten slow here too as I'm doing all this stuff, so I'm gonna try to actually do taking up all the CPU time here. It's probably the Hangout. Yeah. Oh, the camera settings. Look at that, taking up a quarter of the CPU. That's terrible. I'm gonna close this camera setting thing here. Okay, that may help me. And back in the comments over here, Peaceful Warp. You were stuck. I don't know if it's Balaji or Balahi. Sorry to just guessing your name there. Looks like HTML stuff going on over here. You have to have attribute here for layout equals something. Yeah, you don't use a colon. It's not JSON. You have to use layout equals responsive. There you go. Single quote should also work. And ideally width and height should be in there too. Did you close this? You close that. And yeah, keep on adding. There you go. Height. But don't use the colon because it's not JSON. This is HTML. There you go. And I'll take this off the screen so you can go ahead and do these things. If you add in the layout, the height, and the width, then it should show you a nice, beautiful image there. Okay, one more. It isn't working over here. Numerous sugared innocent glitch.me. I agree, it's not there. Okay, let's look at what's going on over here. The benefit of AMP is it's very easy to debug things if you're experienced because it's all HTML. It's not always true, but it's often easier. I think you misspelled responsive. That may have confused things. You'd think that it wouldn't. Maybe it just kind of gave up because responsive was misspelled. I would fix that and see if it works then, because otherwise it looks fine to me. Anything else? Did people figure out? Ah, good job, Ajay. Justin, did you figure out your problem there? Let's show Justin's. Oh, wow, this is really different. I see a video, you did it. Plus the Bacon Ninja. I think this is the best one I've ever seen in my life. And Naruto, look at that. Okay, one more here. Let's look at one more, and then we're gonna go on because I'm guessing many of you have gotten this to work. We're just gonna view the source here, just to make it quicker. Let's go to the bottom here. That looks promising. Is that not working? It's not working. There's an error here that looks like, oh, okay, I did this myself also. You didn't include the script tag at the very top. The script is what makes AmpYouTube run. So you have to go up here to the head and somewhere near the script here, copy in that script from over here. And then just stick it in there. I'm gonna put that in the chat again. This actually is the JavaScript you need to make this work. Should we go on, or are people still stuck? What do you think, GDG leads? Anybody?
I think you're good to keep moving.
Okay. Let's go on then. We'll press onwards. That was 2 AMP components. As we go along, we're going to get more complicated, but not that much more complicated until the end. Okay, there was a solution again, AmpYouTube, data video ID, your favorite video ID, layout of your choice, width and height, and there you go. And of course, you must include this JavaScript over here. Hold on. Ajay, you got it. Okay, great. Okay, so then finding the right component is part of the AMP way of doing things. If you want to add a feature of some sort, you don't look out there for third-party JavaScript. You look instead for AMP components that do what you want them to do. And there are things for most common web interactions. And the best way to do this is use documentation. So for example, at a carousel of images, you can add with a thing called AMP carousel. So AMP carousel is a little more complicated because it has more options. It's not that complicated. Image carousel, of course, being this thing called an image slider sometimes, where you can slide images around the screen with your mouse on a desktop machine or with your fingers on a mouse. I hear someone talking over there and taking a screenshot. I'm going to just mute you over there. Sorry about that. Mute. There you go. Thank you for muting yourself. Okay. Anyway, carousel of images. So you can do this with AMP with a component called AMP carousel. To do this, it helps read documentation. And you look at the docs and look for things like, what does this component do? How do I customize it using HTML attributes? Any clues or tricks for styling with CSS? Does it require its own script tag? What kind of layouts it supports? Just the kind of ways to customize the component using attributes and other kinds of tricks. So again, amp.dev is the name of the site. If you go over there and search for, say, an image carousel, like carousel, and search for that, you will find AMP carousel, also AMP base carousel. AMP carousel is kind of easiest thing to use. There's now a new version of this, which I'm excited about. And you see over here, attributes you can use to change how it works. You can display controls or not, autoplay it or not. You can loop it or not. You can show one slide at a time or more than one slide at a time. It's described over here. There's an example over there. There's simple code over there. And often there's this nice thing here called a playground where you can try out things and change things, see what they do. It's a little bit narrow on the screen as we have it over here. But you can see here, there's a basic AMP boilerplate over here in the head. And then there's your actual HTML down here. Modify these things as you want to, and it should go ahead and just change things spontaneously. There's a wider one, for example, that's responsive, so it's making it extra long and extra small. So do this kind of thing. I'm going to leave this site over here, and we're going to make our own AMP carousel. So here's an example of a carousel. Here's how it looks. You have a width and a height, as you do with almost all AMP components. You specify the layout type. You choose type equals slides over here. We have 3 AMP images here inside the carousel. Those could be anything. That could be paragraphs. That could be videos, any elements. And then you do this, close the AMP carousel, and AMP will go ahead and it will make a carousel for you automatically. So we discussed this too, I think. There's various types that are possible to use. It requires the height. And now we'll try this. Remember to find images on Glitch. You can find them by just clicking on them and getting this long glitch URL. So again, if you go to assets over here, this is someone else's project now, sorry, global shine wavelength. I click over here, I see this long URL, I can copy it. That's my image over there. You can, of course, use other images from the internet. You can find a URL that works for these things, or things in our glitch project, which are all about cheese bikes or cheese or bikes. So our goal over here is to add a carousel right above the video and make it responsive. Choose type slides, make it so that it loops back and never stops. There's a size for you and 3 possible images that will look nice in this carousel. But again, images are up to you. So it's going to be an AMP carousel that contains various AMP images. Any questions on that? I'm looking here at the comments carousel. Yeah, there's various carousels that are good out there. AMP carousel is nice because it's kind of smaller and it works nicely. It's supposed to be, the team works on it really hard to make sure things work across browsers and animate smoothly and don't use too much CPU time. So try this out. I'll try this also. And we'll just do this. I'll mute for a few minutes while I work on this too. You already got it? Okay, I want to show this. Yeah, I think he already has done this. It doesn't loop, but it certainly is a nice working carousel. Now, can you make it loop? Yeah, I muted there because I'm working on this myself, as you are also working on it. Your sound is good. I'm just trying to write some HTML under pressure. There are those already are done, so I'm falling behind. Okay, I got mine working. I'm looking at the chat over here. Yes, AMP components do try to force you to use ARIA properties. They actually want you to do these things and want you to provide tab index, for example, in forms. AMP does various things for accessibility that are pretty good. If you find improvements, then let us know, because it's very important to people. So Ashna has looping working on there. We're seeing a lot of things here that are done. Wow. Here's far plow glitch from Glenn. A beautiful carousel there. And it even loops. Very nice. I'm finding one more over here. Vishal has his carousel on the top of the page with some beautiful mice. It doesn't actually loop, but that's good. If you're bored and done, try customizing it further, making it, not responsive. Try autoplay, things like that. Anybody who's stuck want to add their glitch over here? I'm seeing a lot of things that are working. Small occipital. Oh, very nice. Ooh, wow. Some very classy images over here. Okay, Balaji, you're there. The question about importing each component before using it. That's a good question. You have to add all the JavaScript to each page that uses them. Usually isn't that much, because it's usually like 10K per component. If you add too much JavaScript for things you aren't using, though, that's inefficient. So you don't want to add every component JavaScript up there, because obviously it will slow things down for no reason. Also, of course, people should have these things cached on their devices in most cases, because AMP is used very commonly in the internet. But it is a kind of a pain to have all the JavaScript in there. The team's always working on making these things shorter and making them more efficient. And trying to make, actually right now I'm involved in a big project to make all of AMP faster, and going through all the components on older devices and slower devices, and seeing what has like, janky animation still, or is a little slow, and making things faster everywhere. So there's your bike. There's, I think this is a video. I think your dimensions are a little funky over here. I see, because you were stuck. Okay. So this is probably your carousel, I imagine. Let's look over here. Yeah, I think you've got some HTML problems here. All those little circles indicate you've got problems here. I guess it wants double quotes there. Those don't actually matter. Single quotes should be fine. You can ignore all those things. This looks like it should work. It looks like, yeah, as long as your dimensions are there. You've got to close your tag. I guess you've closed the tag. Seems promising. Just your width and height are kind of small for the video, so it'll look really tiny. The spaces should, I think, not cause a problem. I think the video is here. It's just not the size you expect. You're making some progress. Async property. The async property, async tells the browser to not load these JavaScript files immediately, but to load them whenever it finds it has time to do so. So it means that they won't actually block rendering. So AMP can go ahead and load images, and you can see text and fonts and things before JavaScript loads up, if that's useful. It's one of those best practices. Let's see. You pick the source scripts in a Signal.js file, link them to the page. I'm not sure why that's actually helpful. Like make one giant bundle. You could do that. It wouldn't be valid AMP anymore. It tends to be better to not do that, because you want to minimize the JS on each page. It's better to have just the components that are used on each page, to have just their JavaScript instead of all the JavaScript for all of your site on each page. Any other questions about your projects? I imagine you're probably mostly done and just kind of hanging out, waiting to go to the next part of the project. So I'm going to take a sip of this drink again, and we'll move on. We'll do one more AMP component that's kind of straightforward. And then we'll get something more interesting and complicated. Here's a solution, by the way. AMP carousel tag with width, the height, layout, type equals slides, and then the loop attribute by itself that contains the various AMP images. You close the carousel, and that's it. And of course, add this thing over here, or it's not going to work. So if you can't find components, again, just search around for the amp.dev and look for the component you want. And I'll show mine too. I didn't show my finished example over here. It's not that exciting. I just did the stuff as in the description. There's my carousel. There's some bikes, there's some cheese. Is it responsive? It is responsive. Very nice. Okay. Anyhow, discovering new components. Use this reference over here. I think we discussed this already. I can show it to you over here. Let's drop this back in the page over here, amp.dev. Looking on the left, we see this list of components. AMP access pool with 3 O's for some reason. The accordion, different kinds of things for ads, video players, a call tracking component. There's a lot of components over here. So a lot of things are provided, Facebook comments, some things like some interesting effects you can do that are built into AMP. There's this flying carpet effect over here. There's the parallax effect somewhere. A lot of things for animations that are CSS animations that are assisted by bits of JavaScript. Where's the parallax one? I don't see it. Oh well. Anyway, there it is. No, that's not it. Okay. Anyway, we'll keep on going over here. So I mentioned also that there is this examples for many components where you can try this playground out and try various components in this little playground. Let's go to one more simple-ish kind of component and go from there to a more complicated example. So we're going to add to the bottom of our site social sharing links. But I won't tell you what to actually use. You'll find it yourself. So the goal here is just to add some of these things in the bottom. Not all of those, because, for example, G+ no longer exists. But AMP has these built in for most popular social networks. So your assignment over here is to find the right component by looking at the documentation. Add on the bottom of the page your favorite social sharing links. Recommended here email, Tumblr, LinkedIn, and Twitter, but anything is possible. If you put them in a div with class social bar, they'll have this nice, beautiful rounded rectangle thing going on over here. More of a circle, I guess, really. And if you use a size 44 by 44, it will look nice. So again, go to the bottom of your page, add the proper component, add these buttons over here. If you use this class social bar on your div around these things, it will look all nice and beautiful. So go ahead and do that. I'll do it myself over here too. If you have any questions, of course, please let me know. I'm going to mute again for a second, for a minute or something. I'll put my own glitch link here in the chat as well, if you want to look at one example of how to do this. Here's what I have so far. You can check the source if you can't view the actual code itself, but it shall be visible. That's mine before I did the social sharing link. I see a question in the chat about AMP for large projects and for Bootstrap. A large projects, yes, you can do that. AliExpress, for example, uses AMP for their mobile site, for parts of the mobile site. And they have a lot of traffic on AliExpress. You know, it's Alibaba, the giant Chinese company. AMP.dev also is a very large project. So you can use AMP for anything you want to. It's just not useful for more interactive things. If you want to make your own version of a mail program or a mortgage calculator or some sort of beautiful animated graph or something that would require more JavaScript, it isn't the best choice for those kinds of projects. But most things on the web can be AMP without any trouble. You know, your usual pages you look at on the web, and they're just much faster usually and easier to maintain. Thus, this class. If you want more flexibility, then don't use AMP, use something else that's more flexible. Can you merge AMP and Bootstrap together? Right now, AMP is supposed to be used in its own way without any other JavaScript. If you use Bootstrap, you can use the CSS from Bootstrap as long as it isn't too big. But if it gets too big, AMP wants CSS to be kind of small. This is changing, though. AMP actually is working to make it so you can use AMP components with everything else on the web. So you could then, in the future, have a page that was a mix of AMP components, Polymer components, some React stuff, whatever else you wanted to, and put it all together. It actually kind of works now, but it isn't supported officially yet. But the future is going to be a future where Google gives the same kind of privileges to any kind of fast page with stable layout in search, where you can mix and match AMP components and other kinds of things. The idea of valid AMP will not matter as much then. For now, valid AMP kind of means something. If you add in custom JavaScript, it'll be invalid AMP. If your CSS is too large, it'll be invalid AMP. And it'll still work, but you lose these privileges in search of the search carousel and the AMP cache. So I'm going to do a little more coding over here. Okay, I got mine. Looking at the chat, people are finishing this. Also, I didn't say who Andrew is here. Andrew, if you want, you can say hello. Andrew is another Googler who helps out with various things, including AMP and a lot of other technologies as well for the web. He's kindly here in the chat answering questions because his knowledge of AMP is quite extensive. Looking back at the chat now. Yes, you can target the AMP components via CSS. Absolutely. And integrating maps is possible in an iframe, as Andrew's pointing out. Here's a bunch of folks who have finished it. Take a look at some of these here. How to become a GDE. There we go. Two beautiful circular social sharing icons down there. I'll pop up on more of these things over here. There we go, LinkedIn. If you had this div class equals social share, you should get some nice styles. I'm going to show you how mine looks over here. It's centered and it has a little bit of a gap between the other stuff. I'll show one new person here I have not shown before. Ah, poor Tony Stark. There you go. Any questions on all these things? Anybody still stuck? Anybody got off and got a sandwich? Let me show one more new person we've not shown before. Lovely Melon Bony Dugout. Sorry, I love these 10-hour videos. Yeah, look at that. Very nice. So here's the solution. If you're curious to see the solution, it is simply this AMP social share component. You give it a type, and that customizes which kind of button it is. And the rest is all standard AMP stuff, width, height, and so on. That's it. This actually marks the end of the first course we have online. We're going to dip into the second course a bit for something more advanced, because this is just basic interactions created with single AMP components, but you can do more than that with AMP. To get a small taste of that, we're going to do a menu. Oh, of course, don't forget this over here. Don't forget the JavaScript. This is more about AMP over here. Should I skip this part, do some more coding, or do you want some more talking about AMP? This is like 5 slides that are left to talk about more things about AMP. I can maybe blaze through these things here. It does have certain CSS restrictions, like a limit on the size of the CSS. It wants it to be in line to avoid an extra network request. Here's how CSS looks in AMP, as we said before, and the style AMP custom. There's your CSS. We discussed validation before, why it's actually useful. In general, it gets you into AMP caches, and plus it's supposed to help you make things that are faster and more accessible and will just look good. We discussed this before too, the AMP cache. We discussed this before mostly. The AMP caches, it will optimize images. It will add source set when it can. It will try to compress images, and also tries to prevent cross-site scripting attacks, which is nice. And now let's go to the bonus exercise, building a menu. So here we're going to actually, something a little more advanced. We're going to use events and actions and add this menu to our site. We're going to use a component called AMP Sidebar. AMP Sidebar gives you that classic mobile menu where you hit a button of some sort, tap a button, and then the menu pops in from the left or the right. The screen gets gray. All those things are part of the AMP Sidebar component. The way this works is by using what's called events and actions, which we haven't discussed at all so far. But it's kind of like browser events and sort of similar actions that we might find in something like jQuery and other kinds of more elaborate frameworks than that. So AMP takes browser events and it massages them and gives them to you in this more friendly form. For example, the event called tap, which combines clicking on something with the mouse or tapping with your finger. You can capture these events like this, and on it, when an event happens, take certain actions. And the syntax here is as follows. You've got, how does this work? You have the event, like a tap, for example, and then a colon, and then you're going to have an ID of an HTML element you're going to want to manipulate in some way, and then a dot and an action. So let me find this for documentation because it'll make more sense than me just talking about it to you. Actions and events. A nice page on this or two. Actions and events. It looks like this. The event name, the ID of the HTML element you want to use, and then a dot, and then the method name. So it's going to be, again, event name, colon, HTML ID, dot, and then the action you want to take. Some examples that might have over here. And also, sorry, you put it all in this on attribute. On equals, and then the attribute contains all this stuff. So for example, on submit success event, colon, then lightbox 1. In this case, the action is emitted because there's a default action, probably just to show the lightbox, I imagine. So there's a tap event over there. There's other kinds of things you can do. Input elements, when things change, you can, that fires an event, and you can then do things based on that. But the real key here is the format we've just been describing over here. There's a slide change event for the carousel. When the slide changes, that event gets fired. You can then do something else with other things on the screen that you want to do. Amp list, amp selector, amp sidebar that we're going to use over here, but we're going to not use the events there. We're going to use the events of tapping on any element, which is up here when a thing is tapped. So this is left to you to figure out how to do. But what you're going to do here is as follows. You're going to add a new div in the header of your assignment. You're going to insert into that this lovely 3-line thing. And if you give the div class navbar trigger, it will look nice. Then add an amp sidebar component. Give it the ID sidebar1 and the class sidebar. Class sidebar makes it look nice. The ID makes you able to then use it later on in your code. Inside the sidebar, include a nav element with the class nav. Inside there, make a list, a standard unordered list of LIs that are links if you want. That'll go to nothing because we have no pages to make them go to. Give them these classes, make them look nice. And finally, add to the sidebar another div with this X that closes the menu when tapped. The way this is going to work is look in the documentation for this and remember this format of the event, which is called tap in this case, colon, the ID, a dot, and the action. And I'll give you a hint. There are actions here. Well, there's not really a hint. Actions like open and close and toggle, which will open the menu, close the menu, or toggle its state. I will also insert into the chat the icons for the buttons, because these are nice, handy extended characters that will look nice. So putting in the chat now, 3-line thing for the hamburger menu. Realize that I'm hungry. And then X over here. Suddenly I want some of that Memphis barbecue. And there's the X for closing things. Any questions about all of that? I know it's a lot. This is our last exercise. If not, I'll do this too. And we'll reconvene in a few minutes. Mine actually is working, but the menu's on the wrong side of the of the words. I'm trying to make it a little nicer. Yeah, I wonder if I have some sort of CSS problem here. Otherwise, mine seems to work. I'm looking at the chat now, which I've not been looking at. My Wi-Fi also is a little bit, actually not as good as it could be. Someone just gave me their old Google Nest Wi-Fi, so I have a mesh router here up in our attic, but still not quite as nice as it could be. Let's see, a little rough, but working. Oh, yes. Yeah, I think you're just missing some classes here because the styles aren't quite there. You have this little border around there, and you have the X is not as big as it would be normally. Look at your classes for everything. These should make it all look beautiful, hopefully. I think I have the same problem. Must be missing some important HTML class somewhere. I'll show you how mine looks so far. It's close. It's on the wrong side, though. So I'm going to futz with this for a bit longer and see what else I can get. Oh, Peters is working. That's where it's supposed to be. Yeah, this is an A+ here. You yes, your menu here is all white and the background is gray. And there you are. I'm gonna compare yours to mine and see where I went wrong with mine. So, you know, carry on there. I'm gonna use yours to fix mine. Oh, I'm just being dumb. I have the things in the wrong order. I have my button after the H2 instead of before it. Just been a fool. Keep helping me out there. Reload. Yay! Okay, now I've got mine. Although mine still turns gray, which it shouldn't be doing. Why is that happening? Oh, I know what it is. I know what it did. That wasn't it. Well, okay, I'm gonna look at what y'all are doing over here. Yeah, I have that class equals nav. I'm not sure why I don't have. Usually I think the AMP sidebar uses z-index to make everything gray except for your menu. So I'm not sure what I did wrong here. Anyone else there stuck or have things to show or want a hint? Okay, someone's stuck. This is harder. This is your first day of doing AMP in your life. An hour and a half in, you're already using actions and events. Yeah, the z-index thing, honestly, I'm confused about. I should give you this z-index here in the header bar. They can confuse the amp sidebar if used improperly. So looking over here, you can have extra things you don't need here, I don't think. This A tag isn't necessary. You aren't closing your, I would just have a div here that you close at the top here. So make this bigger, sorry. We lost it. I would just have this be a div that just contains the 3 lines and nothing else. I wouldn't have the anchor tags there. And this close button over here looks promising, but you have to have also this close button an action to actually, when it's tapped, something to happen over here. Like over here, you have this on tap equals top sidebar 1. I would say sidebar 1.open or something else like that, although you don't have to. I have a similar action over here on the X button. So div on equals, sidebar 1 dot tap equals sidebar 1 dot close or toggle or something. And you shouldn't need, oh, interesting. If you have an actual bike's ID somewhere or video ID, this might work. But we don't have those things on this page. Anyway, you're on the right track. But wait, what's over here? Angry Complex. Oh, Ashna's Cheese Bicycles. Perfect. Anybody else want help with theirs? Okay, Sabrina. Oh, that's not too bad. I think that you divided, you have the 3 lines after instead of before the H2. If you change that, it'll appear before it. And then it seemed to close. There's CSS here to make it show up as a, hold on, let's get that over there. Let me show mine again. Is there CSS to make this turn to a pointer? I guess there wasn't. So Sabrina, I think you're almost there. If you just change the order of this and this button and the title there, the z-index part is still the thing I'm a little confused about right now. Okay, I see one more over here with a frowny face. And again, this is pretty advanced. You just started doing this an hour and a half ago. Now let me actually show this too. Beautiful carousel still. So you've got this, you're just missing the menu here. Script. There's your CSS. There you go. Yep, the action is good. Make sure that div there, make sure this 3 lines is not inside the angle brackets, but outside of it. So stick 3 lines there after the angle brackets, then close your div. Exactly, yeah. And there's your sidebar. There's your button. This may not work here, this attribute over here you put in there. If you want to have a inline style, you can do that. It may confuse things, it may not. Shouldn't need this toolbar target there either. But you're on the right track. If you use this class over here we have in the nav, it'll make it look nice. Nav, class equals nav. So GDG leads here. Should we show the solution to this? Or give folks a little more time, because I know this takes a little more time. Are people still working on this?
I think you could show the solution, and whoever's stuck, that could probably be the thing that helps them get through it.
The solution always helps. Here's the solution. So here's your header. Class equals header bar, helps make look good. And then this div over here, which is a button. And you just use this on attribute, again, on the tap event. We take the sidebar one ID and a toggle action. So this div over here contains the button, and the on makes it do something interesting. And then the sidebar itself is over here. It wants to be a no display layout, because when you first show the page, you don't show this sidebar. You can choose your side being left or right. In this case, left looks a little better because the button's on the left. And then here's your div over here, role equals button, again for accessibility. And the important part is over here, that when you hit this div over here, when you tap the div, you take the sidebar one ID and toggle it. You close over here as well. And the rest is just basic HTML. You have this nav, your list of menu items like that inside there. That's that. And then, of course, include this in your head. It's not much HTML you have to do to make this work. The important parts are simply having this button with the on attribute, the sidebar itself, and giving it the right ID, and then the button that closes it. That's kind of it. Let's just look at one or two more success stories here from the chat. They look very nice. We're getting a lot of these things here. I like that you've customized them with your names over here. Here's yours, and it works. Layout's a bit different from mine, but it totally works. So well done. The grayed out part must be a CSS problem, and it's gonna be a little hard to debug now because there's a lot of CSS in this project. So maybe harder to figure out why that's happening. It's actually a thing I want to fix with AMP sidebar. If I can make any feature request, it'd be to make it easier to not make CSS that messes it up. This over here, seems like you've gotten some progress here, but not quite all the way there. What else do we have? So one more. Look at this. There you go. Again, grayed out, but otherwise it's beautiful. Perhaps I can fix in this project, make it harder to mess up the CSS, because I did the same thing you did. So that's that. The AMP boilerplate, we can discuss that for a minute. We discussed that before, honestly. But when you want to use it, you just copy it from over here, usually. And just copy this thing over here, make that your basic page, and go from there. It's just the things we talked about before. The boilerplate has some basic stuff in it, HTML, lightning bolt, or HTML AMP. And then these things here in the head, this meta char set thing for a standard character encoding, the canonical link or AMP HTML link over here for the paired approach, and then this meta tag to normalize things for different devices, the CSS boilerplate, and then the actual AMP JavaScript itself. And there's your all the things there, beautifully shown one at a time, and this lovely boilerplate. That's all I've got. But you actually, in an hour and a half over here, made an AMP site with no validation errors. Pretty good. You put in images there, you put in a carousel, you put in a video, social sharing buttons. You did all those things using AMP components. You even built a menu in there. And if you want to see the actual finished code over here, this link will show it to you. I'm going to put it also here in the chat. If you want to see all this that's done. Typing is super slow now because my computer is so stressed from this Hangout, apparently. This link over here to see the finished code. And yeah, you can go from there. You can try things out. that you find that are AMP components. You can do a lot more than this. You can also do a lot of interactions. You can do, again, XHR requests. You can take data from your server and use mustache templates to show it on the screen. You can do various kinds of interactions. Be curious to see a more elaborate example. You also can look at this. We made this here to kind of explore AMP a little bit ourselves. I use a template that I found on amp.dev, and this is just a basic shopping site over here. Not that complicated, but it does stuff like it's supposed to do. XR requests to show the items over here. You can filter by various things. You can do sorting. You can look at items over here, add them to your cart, customize a number of things, choose the color if there's more than one color out there, and displays a nice little cart over here. There it is. These things are all using AMP. Honestly, the way to make things interactive more easily is using AMP script, the way to use JavaScript with an AMP. That's another more advanced topic, which I'm working on a talk for right now for a coming event or two. AMP script is just a way of using JavaScript in a worker, because workers lets you do multi-threaded JavaScript, and AMP lets you do JavaScript in a worker that doesn't block the main thread. That being said, it is limited because it's actually in a worker, and it is in a virtual DOM, and it's a simulation of the DOM. It's a more complicated topic, but the point is you can do JavaScript in AMP to a certain extent. Roberto has a great question over there. I know you're a more advanced user over there. Cookies. Yeah, actually, I'm publishing a post on this, I think next week sometime. The hard part with this question is that if you're on a cache and it's a browser like Safari that blocks third-party cookies, the cache is a different URL than your URL. So you can't always look at cookies you have that you stored on your domain. There are ways around this problem. That's a more advanced topic, but I'm sorry, I can't discuss it now. We can always discuss it later if you'd like. Any other questions about AMP or about this project? Yeah, sure. It helps you make a site more quickly. You lose some flexibility, but you gain speed, you gain some performance, some SEO advantages, and you gain maintainability. Not perfect for all your pages, but really good for a lot of pages. Also, if you use WordPress as a good WordPress plugin that Google and XWP are making together, that makes it easier to put AMP onto your WordPress site. If you go to amp-wp.org, you can learn all about it over there. Any other questions or comments? If you have comments, especially, you want to be able to put those things in the survey we're going to show you in a minute, because the survey lets us know how to make this thing better, and also gets you in the running for a fabulous prize. But one more question here. Local storage? Honestly, I'm not sure if AMP script actually allows local storage or not. Can't do it with regular components. AMP script, I think, doesn't allow local storage, but it might. It's been discussed a lot back and forth whether it should permit that or not. If it doesn't allow that, it could be a good feature request for AMP script. Andrew's saying yes. Thank you for your more concise answer, but it's sandboxed. I think cookies are not supported, though, in AMP script. There's been discussion of adding those things. If you're a backend developer, it's not really a thing you'll deal with that much, probably, except for generating HTML, which is AMP compatible. But of course, you can use whatever you want to on your backend, PHP, Node, Ruby, whatever you like. AMP is more about what happens in the browser. Also, as a backend person, you can do things to optimize AMP. There's a package we have that lets you do all the optimization that the cache does right there on your own origin. I wonder if I can find it just spontaneously or not. Go over here. All right, I'm really tired right now. I'm doing dumb things. NPM for AMP optimizer. I find this. Now look at this. Would find it. We have a lot of tooling for AMP, by the way. This does all these nice things for you to make your AMP writing easier. It imports all those scripts that you saw there you're adding yourself, all by yourself, and does various optimizations that the AMP cache does right there in your origin instead. Makes the AMP script easier to use. There's various things that are useful there. Also, if you use VS Code, there's a nice plugin for VS Code that helps out with AMP as well. Anyway, any other questions? Or should we go to back to GDG organizers and our fabulous survey and raffle?
Yeah. Thank
That's
you.
the exciting part.
Finally, something exciting is going to happen. You're going to get some free stuff, possibly. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you for everything, everybody. Thank you. Danny, do you want to take over? I already shared on the chat the link to our survey. And Danny, can you take over from here, please?
I think real quick, I'll let everyone know that I'm going to stop recording at this point. I think we've got the video captured the good stuff, and I'll go ahead and wrap up the video.
We can still leave. In the end, when he has to do that announcement, we will take off. So we have even the winners. Let's leave it, please. Still.
Okay, we're all right.
We're
still live.
Okay.
All right, so just to make sure I know exactly what I'm talking about now, is this the organizer announcement, or is this actually setting up the...
This is the survey, and followed by the
survey.
raffle.
Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. Just 1 second.
Fill out this amazing survey, which is very, very short. You can win a fabulous prize.
So,
like a new car, I think, or a helicopter, or was it a mansion?
Right.
A flying car, maybe?
So just to go over the survey real fast, you're going to go to the link that has been presented in the chat. Everyone that does the survey will be entered into the raffle. We're gonna draw 15 prizes, and the only way to be entered in for that is through the survey. We'll be putting your names on a spinning wheel, and everybody will see who's gets drawn and things like that. So if you want to be in the running for one of those good items, fill this out. There's just a couple of questions, and it's going to be great feedback for Ben and everybody else on what we can improve and do things better, and provide more resources towards you guys.
It's an amazing survey. You won't regret it.
So this is the survey, if you can see it. And if any GDG leads would like to do any announcements.
I'd say let the other GDGs go first, and I can go last on the announcement part.
Okay. So GDG Cloud Fredericton, do you want to talk? Who wants to talk? Nobody? Okay, I will do our announcement, and when anybody else is ready.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah.
I got you.
Sorry, my voice was like had a problem. So we just having after tomorrow we're having another study jam with GDG Cloud, GDG Santa Clara and GDG Cloud Fredericton. It will be about AMP2. So if you like AMP and you need to complete like different topic, we encourage you to join us. It will be ADT time. It will be at 9 in Atlantic Canada time, but I don't know if every I can put the time differences in the link. So you just the link is here if you like to join. Yes, please copy this into chat, and yeah, we encourage you to join us for sure. That's it.
Good to see you all. So you think like IO last year, I think that's since then. So thanks for being here.
Here I have everything frozen. I'm trying to. I think I got it.
In Florida, right? I remember you all.
Sorry if you hear my kids. Yeah.
You have a toddler down there, huh?
Yeah, two of them. Yeah.
So I will go next until anybody else will. So we have next weekend International Women Day event. We have some great speakers. If you like to join us, it's always online. I will share our link with who copy URL with who would like to join us. I think I got it. And it's May 23rd. Yeah, May 23rd from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. This is Eastern time. So anyone else would like to make any announcements?
Yeah, hi. This is Vishal from GDG Houston. We too, as GDG Capital is having, we are also having International Women's Day celebrations on May 30th. I'm sharing the link of our website in the chat. You can follow us on any social media or join our meetup group to know the latest updates. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Is there any other GDG that wants to go? Because then I'll go. I know I'll take a couple minutes. That's the reason why I wanted to go last.
Yeah, and please fill the feedback for the raffle. Who would like to win some prizes? We have prizes for everybody, but we have some special prizes also.
All right, I'll go ahead. I'm Danny Thompson with GDG Memphis. If you don't know me, now you do, and I'd love to have a conversation with you. One of our future meetups coming up that we have is going to be a crash course on cloud, extremely beginner friendly. So if you know nothing about cloud, this is an excellent time to get in. Just to give you an idea, some of our meetups that we've had very recently, we just had a meetup recently with Quincy Larson and Kenzie Dodds, who are obviously celebrities in my eyes as far as tech goes. We also had a meetup with David East, who's a phenomenal Firebase advocate that works at Google. And, we're always getting amazing speakers. And our next meetup coming up, we have an amazing advocate out of Tampa, Florida. So he gets to enjoy the sunshine while we don't, but whatever. And, just a really great experience to learn and grow together. And yeah, I can definitely share the link as soon as I'm done with this. And just to give, because I know there's probably, 15 people. Go ahead.
I did. I shared the link.
Okay. Thank you. I know there's probably, a handful of people in here that don't know me, so I just want to go over this really quickly. I'm very big on motivating, inspiring developers of any level in any way I can. So I normally share my story, and the only reason I'm sharing this is I actually got a couple of DMs on why I didn't talk about this yet, but I don't come from a tech background by any means. I'm originally out of the gas station business. I worked in gas stations my whole life, and I was frying chicken in gas stations. And at the age of 30, I came to a crossroads where I said, either I'm going to do this for the rest of my life or it's time to make a change. And it just so happened at that point, I saw a rapper talking about how basically he's the reason why I even got into coding. A rapper invested $10 million into a tech company. And of course, the interviewer is saying, why did you invest $10 million in tech company? And he says, oh, I've been learning how to code. And this blew my mind because at this point in my life, I didn't think people like me could learn how to code. I thought this was reserved for the PhDs and the rocket scientists of the world. I didn't know an average individual like myself could ever do this. So once I heard that, the rest was history. I started learning how to code. I went to my very first meetup. At that time, I only knew HTML and CSS. Basically, at this point in my life, I could cure cancer with code. And I walk in, and it's a very simple application where you put in the URL of an image, and it returns an image with some coloring on it. Basically, St. Jude level kind of stuff. And I go into this meetup and I realize, oh, I don't know anything. And I thought it was the most profound experience of my life because now I'm getting introduced to these new things like C#, Java, which was a foreign language to me. But at that point, I was hooked. I thought I was at my best, but then I realized I can always better my best and do more. And I just fell in love with tech after that. I was able to transition myself. And from there, I've been doing everything I can to help developers everywhere grow. And last year, I was able to help 44 developers start their very first jobs in tech. I was on track to beat that this year. But of course, COVID had to throw something in the way for me there. But last month, I still helped 4 people land jobs in tech. As a matter of fact, my phenomenal partner in crime, Isaac, has just found a new job in tech this week. And it's a huge step up, and he's just a badass. So of course, everybody and their brother wants to get a piece of him anyway. But I'm glad I can motivate and inspire the ones that I've inspired. Please, I love having these meetups because we're all collectively working together and growing towards something better. As I always say, positive impact creates more positive impact. Obviously, we're about to give you guys some resources. Utilize them, grow with them, and when you grow with it, make sure you return it to somebody else down the road. That's the only way we're going to all grow together.
That's a great story. A lot of us are self-taught, I think, on this call. I'm certainly self-taught. My school had an Apple computer. I started doing, I just was really, I got really into it. And there it was. But also one of the reasons I got into AMP is because AMP can be used to learn how to make websites. If you don't know JavaScript yet, if you know HTML and some CSS, you can use AMP to make a website that's interactive. It can be a bridge to more complicated, more interesting, more elaborate coding techniques.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, great story. Thanks for doing what you're doing.
I appreciate it. I always say I'm the guy that'll talk nonstop, so I try to go last because I don't want to take anybody's time. But it's what I do. I'm kind of known on Twitter for talking all day long. So there you go.
So does anyone need any more time for to fill out the form? We received so far like 51, because when we close it, I will take all the names and put it on the, so I want to make sure that we don't miss anybody. Please put the plus in the chat so we know you need more time. Otherwise, in a minute or two, we'll close the feedback form.
I'll also provide a link to the deck here. All these things, I think I put a link there to the courses on amp.dev. They're all in HTML format as well, but they're also available as PowerPoints and Google Slides and so on. I'll just find a link over here and stick it in there.
So, do you like to talk about the prizes that we offer tonight, Danny? I will download the file.
Sure, I can talk about it.
Because I don't see any in the chat. I could download the names and try to put it in the raffle, prepare it. Meanwhile, you are talking. So
sure, I can talk about the prizes. So we're doing two sets of prizes. The first set of prizes that we're going to be spinning for is going to be Udemy courses. It will be any course that you want. We will get it for you if you win. So we want you to keep getting the resources to keep growing with it. And thank you for that. I'm glad you joined us because of me. If there's any way I can help you, I will. But so the spinning wheel will all be for Udemy courses. After that, I was able to go through my network and I contacted people at O'Reilly Books, and they have an online learning platform where they normally charge $60 a month. For this meetup, they are giving everyone that is here now free access for a month. So it's $60 value for everybody, completely for free. Use that to please learn, read whatever O'Reilly books that you've been wanting to read that you haven't been able to purchase yet. This is a top line amazing resource. They're basically spending $4,000 to make sure everybody can grow with us tonight. So take advantage of that. I will be giving the link at the end once we stop recording because they don't want us to share this past whoever's in this meetup. So I'm going to actually give you the full URL with the promo code already in there. So that way you can go ahead and, just sign up and get all your access.
Let's wait for to have all the winners in the recording. And after we have all the winners for Udemy courses, we can stop recording and you can send the code. What do you think? It sounds good for you?
Terrible. I don't like it. No, of course I like it. Yeah, go ahead.
1 second. I'm copying all the names and put it. I hope so that everybody got their answers. 1 second. I hope so. Everything works. Yeah. And I will share my screen. Yeah, I think it worked. 1 second. I hope so that my dogs bear with me. They wanted to come in and they was crying and
My dog was barking during the first part of this incessantly. I could really focus because I heard this bark, 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 bark. I felt really bad for him. And,
they know it. They know it.
Walk downstairs and hang out with him. That wasn't a good time.
Okay, so
later.
I don't know if everybody can see their names. So can someone keep a count of the winners? So we'll have the recording anyways. But and say the names. Somebody to call the names. I will
I'll
only.
write it out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. First.
Isn't Neil a G2G?
Ah.
I recognize the name.
Yeah. So just remove my name.
Okay, so we remove you.
Yeah, please.
Aw.
Okay, next.
We ain't taking this away from the people. He can buy his own course.
That's
I am from GDG as well.
All the GDG.
G2G also.
It's not a winner. Next.
We don't consider them for the prizes, but feedback
It looks
is
like
very great.
we rigged it. We don't want to pay the money, so all the GDGs are going to win instead.
There you go.
Glenn Easton.
Yeah, Glenn.
Glenn is our first winner. Please, if any other GDG is chosen, please let us know so we take your name off from the list. Thank you.
Michael Kipp.
We have so many supporters here in the public, guys.
So how many
There we
winners
go,
is that?
Balaji. So far, we got 3.
Can you write the name?
Yeah, I'm writing the names. I'm going to put it in that LinkedIn chat. Bianco.
Congratulations, Bianca.
Oh, evidently it's more than one. It says remove all instances. What should I do?
It's all right. Let her win it.
Oh,
The jig is up.
I submitted it twice, so I think that is a problem.
Ah, okay. So I will remove all instances, okay?
That was smart, by the way. Doubling your chances.
No, actually, I think I kept having a problem, so I clicked twice.
Ah, okay. That's okay. Next.
Okay.
I'm not even trying now.
Give me a second to write that. Wow.
We have the recording. Don't worry.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Got it.
Maybe the winners could tell their names.
Money.
Congratulations.
I'm from GDG as well.
Does anyone keeps the count? How many we have so far?
Right now we have, but she's a GDG.
We have 6 so far.
6 winners.
Ah, so
But she's a GDG, so do it again.
okay, perfect.
Excluding her 6.
Yeah,
So
please.
we got 9 more.
Okay, please keep the count. Thank you. Wow.
Hey, I know that
All right.
That was palpitant. Next.
Awesome. Yeah.
See you later, Jason.
Hall of Fame.
Yep. Thank you very much, everybody. I have to drop.
Congratulations.
Aw, now they decide to let me win.
He's a GDG.
Okay, so
Yeah, I'm GDG. I'm out.
I remove it.
Pass it along. Pass it along.
Okay, next.
Finally! Finally!
All right.
Hey, congratulations.
Congrats. Hey, why don't you shuffle it a couple times before you spin next?
Yeah. Okay, how many so far?
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 5 more.
Oh, okay.
Rahat. Which Rahat is that?
Hey, that's me. Thank you.
Okay, got it. So,
Let it go in.
Okay, I shuffle it a few times.
there we go. Oh, Asna.
That's what we're going.
Let's shuffle it one more time.
Got 3 more left.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff.
I like this.
Jeff is GDG Memphis guy. I'm glad he won.
Oh, okay. Is one of your attendees?
Yeah. Adam Lanza. We have 1 more left.
Actually, with all these sound effects, you don't even have to do nothing. It's everything done.
She's a GDG, I think.
Can you confirm? Josiane, can you confirm if you are a GDG lead?
She is a GDG lead.
Oh, okay. So we remove 1 more.
The suspense here is killing me.
Okay.
The lag on the animation is killing me.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry about that. Google Meet.
Justin
de Los Angeles.
Yeah, I knew I was gonna win.
Since the beginning, since we started testing, he is with us.
All right, that's all of them.
Oh, we have even the names. Somebody wrote already the names. Okay, so we are done with this. I think now, Chad, we are done with all the prizes, right?
Yeah, you just got to stop recording.
Yeah.
All right.
And,
So yeah, we'll go ahead and wrap this up then. What's left after I stop the recording is some of those people that won will get the secret information. But otherwise, for those that have been watching the video, if you made it through that raffle, wow, congratulations. You've won nothing. We hope you come for another event. And here I go. Here's Cut. All right, everyone.
Did we already do